Welcome back. I am Tiffani,
And I am Andrea.
And
and
I'm
we
Greg.
are, and that is Greg, and
That's
we are
Greg.
relatively, we are relatively unstable. Uh, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe. And what we found out is we're supposed to say save our shit with that little button on the right hand side. You don't have to watch it even; just save
Just
it.
save it. Just save it.
Put us in the algorithm. Um, So, we have a lot of fun on this show and we cover any and everything. Make sure you tell us what you want to hear. But of course, this week it's our show. So we want to talk about what we want to talk about, and that's what we're going to do. And we are Black women. And today we have a guest, Greg Thrasher. Greg is, I love this bio, the son of Bill and Betty Thrasher, made in Detroit, advocate and activist with over 50 years in the work. Love it. Greg's body of work is extensive, from being a candidate for public office to being arrested protesting in the mayor's office in the city of Detroit.
Love
Yeah.
it.
I suspect, Greg, that maybe that's not the only time.
No,
Uh,
not at all. Not at all.
He is the author of many award-winning published commentaries and the mentor and counsel to people from all walks of life. Um, Greg is also very near and dear to me and my family. If you grew up on the west side of Detroit, it's very possible that you know the Thrasher family. Uh, no matter what generation you are watching this, they run deep like many of the families in the city. And Greg,
Mhm.
thank you for joining us.
Wonderful. I appreciate it. Good to see you again. Absolutely
And
wonderful to
he's
see you again.
always, and he's coming to us from the East Coast.
Hmm.
Uh, so
In
you
DC,
are
DC.
DC.
Oh.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
It's been wild last couple of days.
yeah, tell us what's going on over there. We know what's going on. What's the atmosphere? What's the environment like?
I mean, it's a fortress. It's I think overkill because DC is still predominantly a black city. And of course, only when it's a crisis in white America do they bring out this type of heavy law enforcement presence. And of course, the people that will suffer from this over the top law enforcement presence is citizens of DC, who are still majority black. I'm troubled by that. Of course, these same law enforcement officials, all this apparatus, this surveillance, all this machinery is not used to prevent crime, to engage in all the deviant behaviors in the city, because the people in the city, again, predominantly black, still don't rank high on the radar of not only corporate America but the government as well. And we have a black mayor, a very talented lady. I have some issues with her, but she's obviously very talented. And we just had the new police chief who's black. So in that kind of arena, you have now this heavy federal presence because of the insurrection last week. And so, again, I think it kind of pisses me off that the liberties that will be suppressed will probably be mostly black people. Mm-hmm. And the presence of this massive arms and guns and National Guard. I mean, we had a Black Lives protest here in the summer. And of course, it was overkill, right? Totally overkill. And obviously, we had an insurrection a week ago. And the day that it happened, I think only 12 people were arrested. So we can go through all of that. Everybody knows the reality of racial profiling and all those things. And, I am definitely a Black Lives Matter member. And I have to remind people that Black Lives Matter is nothing new. It's been in America since slavery. And so are domestic terrorists. And the idea that this is so new, these domestic terrorists, no, they're not. They burnt up churches, castrated black people, lynched black people, trashed women, blah, 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 blah. So what we're seeing here is a reality that has always existed in America. It's kind of a little bit undercover to a degree, off the radar per se, until white people get impacted, until their liberties are challenged, until the Constitution becomes a fragile document. You know, because I've always took the position that the Constitution is a racist document. Okay,
Yeah.
It's a document that is sanctioned slavery, right? And it's the only document, it's the most sacred, profound document in America. And Andrea, you guys probably know this already too, is that it's the only document that's so sacred and profound, but it actually only expressly defined Black people as fractional human beings.
Yeah.
Right? So we're fractional, and this whole matrix and this whole collective historical narrative, this canvas, we are perceived as fractional human beings. And out of that dimness, out of that negativity, we get people like you and me and Andrea and our siblings and our ancestors and our uncles and all the people that had to deal with the bullshit of America, right? We are an incredible collective of people. And that's over the last maybe 20, 30 years, that's what I've been focused on, is that I don't want to go through the litany of the constant analysis of crisis and bullshit. We already know that. The last phase of my life is all about, I want to make things happen. I want to create outcomes, Tiffani and Andrea. That's my goal is, I can, the dogma's out there, the rhetoric is out there, and we have a lot of it too in the Black community, right? So, but I'm into outcomes now. So this last quarter of my life, I want to be an activist that brings outcomes and solutions. So that's where I'm at the age of 66.
And what do you think is the kind of the difference in activism today versus activism when you were, in adolescent, you were in college?
It's much more informed. It's much more informed. I mean, young people like you, when I was growing up, it just wasn't, you had to really, first of all, you had to have the frequency to listen to voices that you were told not to listen to. And that requires courage sometimes, because you will be ostracized and ridiculed and so on. So, but I think today, I'm really, really, really impressed with the younger generations. I have a lot of faith in them. And even though we have all these instruments, social media and all these things that can contaminate you, I'm impressed with the young people. And I see the like you said earlier, you guys go for it. I mean, many times I was by myself in a lot of my early activism, right? And so, I mean, I was arrested in Mayor Coleman Young's office. He's one of the greatest Black politicians in Detroit, right? But he was also full of shit sometimes. So but now what I see is a whole different, more collective, more, especially I like how young people ride and die together. I like, they call you Black young kids gangs, but we're really not gangs. But so I like, there's more of you, you're more informed, and the genius of Black people and the Black and your bandwidth is just phenomenal. So I actually enjoy watching you guys do your thing, and it kind of inspires me and makes me still stay focused. But so you guys are, to me, you guys are much more prepared.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So my Facebook memories reminded me that roughly a year ago, I went to this youth conference where it was like different after school programs were coming together to kind of like talk about issues that were important to them and like how to advocate for them. And you're absolutely right. Like, it struck me that these were high school students.
Yeah.
So they're 20 plus years younger than me, and they are very, very in tune with what's going on. They are very inclusive. They are very aware of how society looks at them, how, like, what their place in the world is. They are very, very aware of it.
Yeah.
And, it made me think, like, at 17, I was not,
right.
I was not, I consider myself to be relatively well read at the time, but like, I was not thinking about it in a global sense like these kids are. Yeah. And I mean, I left that conference like, the kids are all right.
Yeah.
They
I mean,
all
you're
right.
absolutely right. Now, what I caution too, when I do run into young progressives and activists and so on, what I've learned over the years is that you have to be more than that. Okay, all of those things are critical and important, and sometimes they're just drive-by wake-up moments, right? Mm-hmm. But for me, the totality of who you are in the world is more than just being an activist. It's more than just being a Black Lives Matter person. It's more than just knowing the latest about the Me Too this. All of that consciousness is great. But mm-hmm. what I want people to do, I want young people to do, is now tell me, evolve your personality. I want to know, I want you to take that's an aspect of it, but now take me into the other realms, okay? Because I'm Black, but I'm more than Black, right? I'm Greg, but I'm more than Greg. And so when I see young people have the capacity to not compartmentalize all the social justice issues, but have the ability to pull it out when they need it. Sometimes you have to be situational, right? Sometimes you can't, especially in workplaces, you can't go all Black. You can't throw your slang in there. You got to go on the phone and get your corporate voice, and you got to dress a certain way and all that. And then sometimes, especially with our young Black men, it's not, sometimes you don't have to be hard all the time, right? You don't have to come up with that bravado shit. Sometimes you need to be soft. Sometimes you need to be touchy. You need to give people comfort. And then sometimes that makes you a better person, mm-hmm. right? It makes you a better person, because at the end of the day, you own your life, right? Andrea, Tiffani, you own your life. I own my life. I'm responsible for Greg. I like Greg. I like whatever, but you can't always give that to everybody.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes, that's, I can't remember Andrea, I sent you this book. You probably won't remember either, but I listened to this book, and one of the quotes from it was, it was actually for women, but it was Black women and Black women's voices. And she said, if your feminism isn't intersectional, I don't want it. Right. And it's basically saying we are multidimensional. Either come with and explore all those parts of us, or, kick rocks. Right. So right. I agree. But I kind of want to stick with that for a minute, what you just said, Greg. And it's kind of, Greg and I were talking before we went on, ironically, about kind of like family secrets and keeping things tight. And that kind of ties for me into a conditioning that I feel like we have as Black people, that I see. I do a lot of work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I see a lot of what I feel like are conditioned responses to certain things, because we as Black people and families have been taught to keep safe and to keep ourselves safe in what we say and how we move and what we do. And as a mother, as a parent, of course I teach my children safety measures, but I also have one little loose cannon who is, I think, an up and coming activist, and and he's also a kid. And it's Greg, I was reading, actually going through some of your blog, and I pulled one from 2010 referencing Black families in the suburbs, which is what we are. Right. And we struggle a lot with sending our child to a suburban school, but having him maintain that identity of being a Black child that will be a Black man. What do you think about that? And how do we kind of help these kids, younger people, kind of keep that identity because what I just heard was code switching from you. That's what I heard. That's what I heard was code switching. Right. But even when Brandon and your band was growing up, and we were living in West Bloomfield, obviously they would rush to Detroit. Everything about Detroit was just a magnetic source for them, right? But the fact of the matter is, wherever you are, you're Black. So even when you're in the suburbs, you got some shit you got to deal with out there. And so this, my whole thing was, you don't have to constantly tell everybody I'm Black, or because I'm living in West Bloomfield, you got to remind people that I'm just as hard as the guys from Detroit, because I know Brandon and Adam used to run into that a lot. And when people find out that when you live
live in the suburbs, they think you're soft and this and that.
He's talking about his son and my brother.
So I think that happens. So I think it's critical to, first of all, recognize it's there, right? You're gonna have this. I mean, because we have that in our community. We have colorism, right? We have light-skinned Black people, dark-skinned Black people. We have Black women with hair and this kind of hair and that kind of hair. So all these caveats have always been there, right? And so, especially when Black people start gravitating towards these suburban communities and left the central core city, there was going to be some changes. And then how do you calibrate those, right? You don't lose your Blackness just because you got a different zip code. Matter of fact, you may find out something else about your Blackness that you had not known before, because now you're probably encountering affluent white people or middle class white people. And what used to blow my mind, because I was in also largely Jewish community, what used to blow my mind is I find them as bigoted and nasty and full of shit as the Trump people or the rednecks or the hillbillies. So what happened, you end up finding out, wait a minute, all these years I'm thinking just some hillbillies were full of shit and didn't like me and would use the N-word on me. And I come to find out white liberals, progressive Jewish people, progressive other ethnic groups, they feel like we're pieces of shit too. So, and then they're in the neighborhood, they're in the communities that I'm in now. I'm in this affluent community. So I don't have to rush to Detroit to find that shit out. It comes to you.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We're in West Bloomfield now, and I would say not only are we finding out stuff about ourselves, like you said, we're finding out things about other people. And to your point about kind of the profile of who these people are, and going back to the insurrection on the 6th, I've read this article called, I wrote it down. It was basically it was saying it was the article was about are poor white people voting against their own interests. I can't remember the title of it. Yeah. It was basically kind of the because you say I had this conversation with some other people about kind of this empathy they had for some of the people at the Capitol who are being exploited by more affluent white people, and they really don't even understand what it is that they're angry about, other than they've been conditioned to be mad that Black people, because it was essentially about race. It wasn't about the Constitution. I mean, I guess it was, because the Constitution is racist, but they essentially are mad that Black people could get something that they don't have, or have something that they don't have, but really they don't have it either.
Yeah, you see, you got to understand the analysis real quick. There was 74 million plus people voted for Trump, okay? If you look at the demographics, if you can go back and look at the demographics of LA, right? Look at the demographics of what happened at the insurrection the other day. Those were not just poor white people, right? Those are not, so this whole narrative of these angst, this working class white people have this angst, right? Some of that is true, but that's not the totality of the analysis, right? The fact of the matter is the people with power aren't poor white people, right? The people with power aren't the ones, they don't look like hillbillies. They're not the ones, they're dressed in suits and shirts and they blog, social, I mean, so we have to be conscious not to be programmed and assume that every poor white person we think doesn't like us or has some adverse contempt for us, maybe, but maybe that's not true. When I was younger, I used to go to a lot of KKK rallies, and I went there just to see.
Why you're on this show today.
Yeah, just to see. I needed to see hate up close in person, right? And I went to a couple of them up and where did I go? Where were they? They were at University of Michigan. So these KK rallies were not in in Taylor, Michigan, in Southgate, Michigan. They were in Ann Arbor. So, but what I discovered when I went up there was two things. I discovered that there's a whole other collective of white people who don't like KKK. I didn't know that there was that undercurrent. But I also discovered that there were people who didn't look like KKK people to me, right? They look like my neighbors. right?
Mm-hmm.
They look like the people who were in the insurrection the other day, right?
Yeah.
And so we get caught up sometimes in the rhetoric of stereotypes too, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I had this big argument the other day. Maybe you guys can give me your thoughts on it because you're women. When Biden was making this selection for vice president candidate, right? I had my argument was, and by the way, I'm glad Kamala is the first Black vice president, all those things. But I made the argument that if he selects her, it's going to narrow his margin of win because white women don't vote for, well, first of all, white women didn't vote for Hillary, and white women are not going to vote for Harris. And so when we come to find out that was true, once again, white women echoed what their counterparts were, right? And you know, but you know, because Obama never won the white electorate, he never won all their votes, and so Trump got more. I think he got almost as many white women this time, very close to what he had when he beat Hillary, right? And I was making the political argument was that if he just selected a white woman and or a white male, the race, I mean, the election wasn't that close. But think about it. The election was extremely close.
Yep.
Right?
Too close.
It was, right? And so
we watched it for what, 6 days? Yeah. We were glued to the television.
Yeah. And not only that, so what happened? So is it true that every other white person we see in America is supportive of the Trump regime? They had 75. And here's the other thing too. People don't do this analysis. There's almost 50% of the people don't vote at all, don't give a shit, are locked out off the grid, right? And I would wager half of those people probably support Trump.
Yeah.
Because if they were progressive, they wouldn't be locked out, right? They wouldn't purposely not be off the grid. So we need to be more sophisticated with our analysis, right? And understand that there's some people who we think have allies for us or not, but we need to know that. So I don't like to quickly buy the latest narrative, especially political narrative, because it can change, because there's something always undercurrent these narratives. And the fact of the matter is, we're still dealing with some racist shit that's been there, 400 years? You can't change that overnight.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's funny to me when people say what I keep hearing, we have to reunite, we have to heal. I'm like, healing implies that we were fixed, that we were whole.
Right.
I'm like, we've never been whole, and we've never been united. I mean, so how can we reunite?
I mean, we can't even get our sitting president to even disavow or white supremacy or not. I mean, and I'm a little raw because I watched Schindler's List for the very first time last night.
Yeah, that's a wild movie. Yeah, woo.
It's wild, and all the while I was talking to my boyfriend, and we were watching this, and we were talking about how, you see the meme where you say like, oh, like people that lived in Germany during that time who were like, oh, but I like what Hitler is doing with the economy. I like what he's doing with this. I like what he's doing. Yeah, you guys are Nazis. Like, you're not good Germans. You're Nazis, and that's the point. So the same thing with, and we were just pointing out all of the similarities about how people can turn a blind eye to what is happening, but still that they're still able to regard themselves as good Americans, good Christians. Like, oh well, I'm friends with my Black neighbor,
right?
But my wealth and my economic standing is, I value that more than I value this person's life, and that's what we need to. One of the many things, but that's what we need to atone for. Like, we can't get to the unity, we can't get to the kumbaya moment until we actually have people that are willing to say, yes, white supremacy is the cancer of this country, and it has been since the beginning of this country. And we can't, like, until everybody's on that page, like, we can't unite. Like,
But we can't unite, but we can't be stuck. We can't be stuck on pause waiting for them to come around, because we still have to continue to be the best that we can be, right? Exercise our genius, exercise our growth and evolution. I'm tired I have civil rights fatigue, honestly, waiting for white people to wake up. So I'm not going to, I'm not chasing white racism too, right? I don't need to know every story about them calling the police and shit on me when I show up in areas I'm not supposed to be in. All of that is fine and dandy. But again, we're more to, I have a lot of friends who are journalists in white media platforms. And they tell me, Greg, I hate it when they assign me to the Black arena, right? My journalism is beyond just talking about Black stuff, right? And so I also think in our analysis of when we do the analysis of the white supremacists and all they've been around, yeah, they have, and we know that. But and you know what? We know how to deal with them, right? We're still here, right? If we were that inept and incapable, we wouldn't be here. Because, by the way, Native Americans are almost extinct in America. We had 2 Holocausts here, right? And we saw what happened to one collective. They're almost gone. They were a lot of them. We still have reservations. Shit, right? So no, they're there, but they're not going to be the totality of who Greg is or my community is. And because really think about it, we got to get our shit together. Our communities are suffering, right? And some of it is implosion from us, right? It's sometimes we're doing this shit that the KKK could never even want to come to do. And that's where I'm at. I don't need white people to validate me. I don't need to constantly bring them up to let them know that I know what's important. What I want to know what's important is, what am I doing? What's my community doing? All right. That's where I'm at. Because white people are not going away. And all the stuff that they bring with them is not going away either, right?
Yeah.
Biden kept saying, this is not who we are. He's full of shit. This is exactly what America is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And to your, as you were talking about white women and Kamala Harris and what that would have looked like had he selected someone else. I was just listening to a webinar today, it's Friday, about white women's kind of tiered support, and Black women are at the bottom of the list. They'll support a Black man, they'll listen to a Black man before they will listen to and support a Black woman. And so what they were talking about on this webinar was basically that, or what I should say, what I took from this was, there is, and for the foreseeable future will be, a trust chasm between white and Black women. So the one woman was talking about sponsoring and mentoring Black women, and a responsibility she felt, and she was this dialogue was with her Black friend and colleague, and that they had this, she felt this responsibility to go above and beyond, but at the same time, like, as a Black woman, there have been only a few white women that I even really trust with my career, for example, because there's a ceiling. They will go to bat for you to the point where there's a risk, to the point where something that they need or want or feel you might threaten is a risk. And then they stop. Then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't go any further, or maybe next time. Whereas, they might take that risk and or listen to, and there's also a difference in that mentorship relationship. If a strong mentorship relationship is going to be, I learn from you, you learn from me. And if there's this, all I'm going to do or all I can do is teach you and lead you, and there's nothing that you can impart on me and my growth, it's never going to work. And that's what I see. That's what my experience has been, that there's no two way in that. There's a ceiling.
Mhm.
But if it's a Black man, they're still only going as far as the risk, but they might listen to. There's more camaraderie. There's more, the relationship might be a little bit deeper. So I agree
That's
with you
probably
100%, Greg.
that's historical too, because Black women, they were obviously envious of Black women. I know on the plantation, because Black women, their master, their husbands were attracted to Black women. They were having sex with Black women. They were giving them babies. And so that probably made them feel very fragile and uncomfortable with themselves, that here is a Black woman, a slave, is more respected, maybe not respected, but is valued, certainly in other areas more than I am. And so all this stuff has historical memory, but it also have historical impact trajectories, right? So one could easily make the argument or make the observation of the inference that these white women, because of their envy of Black women, right, still have this angst, right? And a lot of times in a corporate world, there's more than just being a mentor. There's sponsorship, there's relationships, and so there are different layers of. And sometimes these white women are not your ally. They're the same gender, right?
Mhm.
But like with white men, with me, do they really respect your genius? Do they really take it to another level? Very few do, right? Very few do. Most, it's because that requires effort, right? It requires like somebody like maybe Andrea, who's a bit off the edge, or somebody Tiffani, who's progressive, who's cutting edge, right? And that requires effort. And a lot of people, even in our own community, don't want to spend the time and the effort of cultivating genius, of harvesting it, right? They'll just give you a drive-by, yeah, I know Andrea's into this, Tiffany's in that, spend 2 minutes with you and move the fuck on when you need more.
Yeah.
Right.
And, and stat after stat says that Black women, not me, are, have more education than any other group in the United States.
Yeah.
And, add to that, we have in us a certain fight, I'm generalizing, a certain, staying power, a certain confidence to express ourselves, because if we don't, we won't be heard.
Background of the Black women are the background, have always been historically, will continue as we traject into the future, will be the fundamental core of Black society, right? And from motherhood to being partners with Black men, to taking things to a whole nother consciousness, right? And you can see that even when you raise your children. I remember when I was raising Brandon and Loris, Black women are much quicker, they develop much quicker than the men. You do, right? And so you harness your skills and your talents and your intuitiveness at a much earlier date than we do. And then when you do harvest it and harness it, people are not prepared for it. Right? Especially the dominance, especially white women, right? They run into somebody like you and Andrea, it's like, shit. That's competitive, right? I mean, whoa. I mean, I know you guys familiar with Shirley Chisholm.
Yeah.
Okay, she said, was one of her greatest quotes. They always talk about this quote. She says, somebody asked her a question, what's your greatest challenge? And she said, it's not being a Black woman, it's being a woman, right? So she was talking about beyond the racial narratives, right? I'm a woman. And this brings a whole level of shit that no Black people, the Blackness can't even begin to understand.
They don't hear us though.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true. But you guys got to keep pushing, you guys, because right now we are a fragile lot. Black men are a fragile lot. I'm not saying we're broken, but I am saying we've been in jail too much. We've been underachievers and shit. We have lousy relationship skills. A lot of us are misogynists. A lot of us don't know how to handle and love a woman, right? So I'm not saying we're all broken, but what I'm saying is we look at two species, right? The man, the Black woman and the Black man, all right? Your canvas is much better than ours. And it has been that way for too long. And I should tell Brandon all the time, Brandon, I need you to be better than me, right? I need you to take it. So, and then one thing I tell Brandon and Loris too, I'm sure your dad told you guys the same thing. To me, the most critical decision, one of like 5 most critical decisions you can ever make in life, is to select a mate, right? Is to find someone who's going to partner with you. And that is so critical, right? Because, I mean, depression is big in the Black community, right? We have a lot of people who are broken, who can't, go through extreme levels of hurt and pain and all that, right? Who wants to do that by themselves, right? That's tough.
Yeah. You touched on this. You touched on that a little bit earlier, and I want to mention that Greg is quite outspoken about mental health and the importance of mental health in the Black community, and particularly Black men, which I think is just, especially being the mom of boys, is just crucial. And I think it also plays a role in how resilient we can be when we do have to, I guess, deal with the whiteness, deal with the realities of protecting a constitution that doesn't protect us. And it's all trickled down. And I just love that about you, Greg, that you can't, because it is so hard with so many different dynamics of being alive and being alive in the United States.
My mom, because I remember when I was in law school, and I was at the top of my game. And I was first to go to college, first to go to law, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then I had a breakdown. And then I was in my class. I was in law school in the classroom, and the police came and got me. And I ended up having to go to the hospital, right? Ended up having to be hospitalized. So when I came out, when I was in the hospital, all my uncles and aunties, they were like keeping a secret, right? I'm like, I should tell my mom, don't keep this shit a secret. I'm not ashamed of it. You know what? This is happening to me. This is real. I don't want you to, because we used to hide homosexuality in the Black community. We also used to hide mental illness in the Black community. And a lot of it was about pride and, I can make it, I can do it. I don't need, I'm not sick. We used to call it stuff like, he's crazy. We use words like that. But the fact of the matter is, I told my mom, and she was with me. My dad was not. My dad was embarrassed. My dad was ashamed that his son, who was supposed to be a lawyer, I'm in a receiving hospital in a straitjacket type situation. So, but my mom gave me that courage. And then when I come to find out later, Tiffani, I got like almost a third of people in my family tree had depression, right? Had bipolar stuff, right? And so once I was I wasn't no hero, nothing like that. I'm just saying, I didn't want that. First of all, I wanted to get that shit off of me, right? I wanted to get back to quote unquote what is normal, right? And so some ways you do that is you have to let people, you want to talk about it. Why do I want to hide the fact that that I had this happen to me? And it did take a while, but it also, when I read about all these athletes that are coming out now and celebrities talking about, they're bipolar and this and that, I think it's great. Plus, we have a high levels of suicide in the Black community, right? We use a lot of drugs in it. We have, some of us are broken and we get high all the time. We drink, we smoke weed 24/7, right? And so we try to treat these things with other things that are even more dangerous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm supportive of it. Disclosure.
I love it. Will you come back? Let's have another conversation about this entirely. Because it's a spectrum. Right. It's a spectrum, because what you just described was a trauma experience that you turned into advocacy, and you turned into education, and you turned into support. But it doesn't always look like that.
That's true.
Sometimes it looks you know, like your homeboy, it looks like your husband, it looks like your brother who's getting by, but is suffering, or
Yes.
who is holding things in that just might
Yes.
be impacting who they are as a person, and won't even take the time to figure out if, you know, like,
Yeah.
no, I had a normal childhood, nothing's wrong with, you know, it's not that, but maybe it is, or whatever. Or
Absolutely.
it is something chemically that can be easily treated, and you know, so that is super important, I think, to everyone on this episode. And you know, like I said, for me, you know, I had a father, and Greg and I were kind of talking about that before we came on, and just some of the things. My father had something very traumatic happen to him that he held on to his whole life.
Right.
And with him, only one other person alive knows about it, and I only, you know, but knowing that about him, I just almost every day now since I found out wonder what would have been different for him had he not witnessed that, or had he had a chance to work through it.
Exactly.
You know, not that he wasn't a happy person, but how much more complete could his life have been? And then how could that have impacted his parenting or him at work? I mean, because it all spreads.
It's all connected. Yeah.
Everything's
And
connected.
everything's connected. And, you know, much like what we're talking about today, and because it's not just your family, Greg, or my family, or Andrea's family, it's rampant throughout our community. And then on top of that, to have people like we heard during the impeachment hearing the other day try to invalidate who we are and what we are trying to do, and compare something that is far more, I'm sorry, it's not even comparable. What happened at the Capitol is not comparable to Black Lives Matter. It's the impetus is different. It made the anger, there may be a feeling of anger that could be shared, but the what precipitated it is completely vastly different. And you know, I just think that when you were talking about starting with our own community, that's one place we definitely need to start.
Well, this is almost like I said, this is the last quarter of my life, and my activism is kind of winding down. Well, it has winded down significantly. But I am working on one final project, and I'll let you guys in on it. Hopefully by the in the middle of 2021, I've developed this website, and this website is going to be called National Police Hub. And on this website, it's going to be similar to a Yelp website, where we collect the top police departments in every 50 states in America, and we give them a rating. And the rating is based upon a weights of how many people have been shot, how many people have been arrested, how many Black police officers you have, how many complaints you have, so on and so forth. And so you go to the website, you put in, say you're living in Georgia and you're moving to New York, and you put in New York will pop up. It won't be a long analysis, it'll be just one page. It'll give you the website of New York, what their complaint status is, blah, 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 blah. And they will give it, you know, we'll give it like 1 to 5. 5 being a good police department, 1 being fucked up, they might shoot you type thing, right? And it'll be short and sweet, no long-winded, whatever. And then of course on the website is going to have many other links to finding out about the police department in your neighborhood, the latest case studies on police search and seizure, blah, 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 blah. So this is going to be my signature. I've been working on it for 2 years. And once I get it together, I'm going to share it with you guys first. Just get,
Yes.
I have an
exclusive.
Yeah, that I think I got like a list of about 25 people that I'm going to screen it with them first. And I'm adding you guys to the list because I feel your vibe, right? And so I'll keep you posted down the road. But have you ever gone to Zillow or whatever websites where they have embedded links? They have embedded links, and these links have, you know, how many libraries in a neighborhood, right? What's the school district like? Blah, blah, blah. Well, they'll have my link in there too. So if you're coming, you're a tourist or you're from some other place and you want to know what the cops are like in Detroit, we're going to give you a grade.
Excellent.
So that's where.
Let me ask you this about this project. So have you had conversations? What kind of I don't even need to know if you've had, what kind of conversations have you had with police officers?
Some of them, obviously, my brother was a cop, and some of the police officers.
Oh, I know. I have a story about your brother as a cop.
Some of them welcome it. I've talked to prosecutors too, right? Some of them welcome it. Some of them are highly offended by it too, but that's not my issue, right? So some of them don't want their performance being showcased like that, right? But information is power. And nowadays, everything is the dashboard, the computer, website, this and that. And so we have to take advantage of it, right?
Yeah.
And then, for instance, Yelp, and these are $1 billion industries, right? And people going on there giving their testimony. And so why can't we do it in the social justice arena? That's exactly what we're getting ready to do.
You get no argument from me. I wish that, I don't know that it would have kept us from buying this house, but my very first, and our first protest that we did this summer with Jacob, I am a mother that if he asks, I tell him. If he sees it, we talk about it, so we're not hiding anything from him. And plus he's just a sharp kid.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
when we went, now we know his uncle is a police officer. And so I try to, we try to instill a healthy balance with him on, being safe and trusting, but when we went, he's like all nervous, and he's like, he saw the police officers at the protest, and he was like, I'm really nervous, Mom. And I'm like, so we're like, we're here. You don't have to be nervous. Mom, Dad will protect you, whatever. And that was true. At the same time, there are clear differences in how things happen sometimes. So before we moved into this house, even, I didn't have a violent incident, but there was a difference in how I was treated compared to my white neighbor. When the police came down the street, I'm cleaning the cabinets, and they're like ghost riding down the street, 6 of them with like SWAT gear on and rifles out. And so I'm like, I'm like, should I take cover? What's going on? They're like, don't you worry about it. This is after they walk through my yard and everything. But then they're talking to the neighbor. Yeah, they're talking to the neighbor across the street, telling him everything. I'm like, oh, okay. I still don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But Greg, I think that is.
Well, they need a grade, because obviously this.
We lost your. Oh,
yeah.
So you all heard it. Greg is going to share it with us, and I think that is a phenomenal. Because people deserve to know where they're living, how to prepare for where they're living. And
absolutely. Well, today they used to have what's called the Green Book. You guys familiar with the Green Book?
Yeah.
It's it's where Black people, when they would go to this, they'd have this guide to take, use this restroom, stop at this restaurant, blah blah blah. Well, this is kind of in homage to the Green Book. This is it's built upon history, right? And so we need a cutting edge, current web-based interface platform today that provides us with up-to-date, short, quick, snappy analysis of these police departments, including how many they shot, how many Black people they arrest, who gets the tickets, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So I'm going to, you guys will be on my screening committee.
Awesome. So I had so many other notes, but I don't want to keep you, and I do, Andrea, unless you have anything to add, I do want to ask you, what is it that you want to see? You, like you said, you kind of winding down, You've given us a blueprint. You've gone, you've done your time. You've been arrested. You've been very vocal. I have to say this. This is a quick Greg Thrasher story. I hope this doesn't embarrass you, Greg. So back when I was working I was working at downtown, and a friend of mine at the job went to an event at the Museum of African American History during his lunch. I don't remember what the event was. It was some sort of panel. And he came back to the office, and I went and sat down in his office, and he said, I was at this event. He was like, this guy, he was like, have you heard of this guy, Greg Thrasher? And so I said, as a matter of fact, I have. He said, this dude straight up fronted on Jesse Jackson in front of everybody about being 2 hours late to the panel. I said, that sounds like Greg. That is the Greg Thrasher that I know.
Yeah, that was probably.
What is it that you want to see? The young Jacobs or the Erics or the Brandons or the Tiffanis and the Andreas. What is it that you not just want to see, but what do you have the confidence that our actions can achieve? Because what we know is that we've been doing this for 400 years, and we're still, we've only moved the needle so much. So where do you think we'll be when I'm 66 and when Andrea's 66 sitting talking to somebody else?
Well, first of all, I want all of us to be the best that we can be, the very best that we can be in any capacity, in any endeavor that we do, whether it's private, public, or in the house, right? And then secondly, I want all of us to be as happy as possible, because this life is short. And when you realize it's short, and people leave us. Tiffani, your dad left us. People leave, gone. And I can go back on memories and shit, but they're gone. So I learned this concept years and years ago, and I don't try. It's hard to live. I know it is, but it's called moment to momentism, right? And so what it is that in every moment, if you can, value it, learn from it, be conscious of it. So if your son and you and Andrea, whatever, what I want out of you, what I want to see out of you is that you are happy, you be the best you can be. Obviously, I want your Blackness to come through. I want your femininity to come through. All those things I want to come through. But I want you to live a life. Live a life. Make your life as possible, as fulfilling as possible. Paint your canvas with all kind of shit. But it'd be your voice. And because that's the best of it all, and right today, I felt so good when you called me the other day, because I said, that's your dad. Your dad's trajectory is out there. He had you call me. I felt so good, Tiffani. It made me feel so good. We haven't talked in years. And so you've still had your dad's impact on you, has made such a wonderful mother and a wonderful person, but you had me in your radar. What the fuck?
Always.
You know what I'm saying? That's a great feeling. It's good to be respected and loved. It is. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on, Greg. And I hope we have so much to talk about with you, I think.
Yeah. I feel like this could go on for another 2 hours, and we still would just be just scratching the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can share.
We haven't even touched on, but the what about?
Yeah.
So
share the blog, and people can Google my name. I got a lot of stuff out there. You can Google Greg Thrasher. You can come up with a lot of stuff. You got my phone number, email, and whatever I can do for you guys right now. I'm here in DC. If you need some research on something, if you want to track down a congressman, I know Barbara Jordan, she's here. If you want to track down some people, let me know. I can do the legwork. And I have an incredible book list of, books I've read and things that I think people is important. So I want to be a living asset, not just an old guy who went through some shit, right? You know, I want to make stuff happen.
And that's the important part, is if you go through it, to be able to share. What's the point of going through it if you don't have the experience to share? And you have I don't use this word a lot. You have blessed us today. And
likewise. Right back
and
at you.
We appreciate you. Make sure you do check out Greg's blog, the plain idea, or the plain ideas.
Plain ideas.
Theplainideas.com. He's got
yep.
We'll link it.
Okay.
And but lots of content and serious opinions, and you could just sit there and go through it like way back to 2010, and all relevant and interesting. And I'm sure Greg won't mind answering questions and all that kind of stuff. So
there's one of my favorite articles in there is how to survive and develop in an urban environment. So there's like, I come up with 10 practical tips on how to survive and develop in an urban environment. And that's where most Black people live, in urban environments.
Yeah.
And so if you go to the blog, pull up that one, and they give you like 10 real-time common sense tips that you can use today, 2021.
And
so
he's lived it. Listen.
It is.
Listen and learn. Greg, thank you. Make sure you follow Greg, follow us, come back next time. And Greg, will you come back?
Absolutely. And send me a link to the pod. Send me the link.
I sure will. We will see you all next time. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.